I stood frozen on the street watching my 150-year-old ranch house burn like a torch against the night sky, flames snapping out of the windows like they were trying to grab the stars. Fire trucks, police cars, neighbors in pajamas, everyone was there. And all I could hear over the crackling wood and sirens was the echo of the text message that had hit my phone just 20 minutes earlier. Congratulations on your win. Unfortunately, it won't last. Check your house when you get home. 3 hours earlier, I'd become the new HOA president. And now my home, my family's home, was dying right in front of me. I guess I should start from the beginning. I'm Jake Thompson, 26, computer repair guy. The type of person who used to think the most dramatic thing in life was a customer yelling because their keyboard stopped working. Then one phone call changed everything. It was from Mr. Williams, an old family lawyer. He told me I'd inherited a ranch I barely remembered, 20 acres of land, a beautiful wooden house built by my great-grandfather in 1874. Worth $2 million, he said, like he was telling me the weather. 2 weeks later, I'm driving through Willow Creek Estates, this spotless, fancy neighborhood outside Austin. Perfect lawns, perfect houses, perfect cars. It felt like I'd wandered into a catalog. And then I turned into my driveway onto a completely different world. An old wooden ranch house with stone chimneys, wildflowers spilling all over the porch, 100-year-old oak trees shading the yard. It looked like history. It looked like home. Too bad my neighbors hated it. I barely had time to park my beat-up pickup truck before a woman in a tennis outfit strutted across the street like she was about to write me a speeding ticket. Tall blonde bob sunglasses she definitely didn't need at 5 p.m. She held a clipboard like it was a weapon. "Excuse me," she said, already angry. "You can't park that truck there." I smiled, thinking she was joking. "Hey, I'm Jake. Just moved in today." Her face twisted like I'd told her I was releasing wolves into the neighborhood. Moved in. That's impossible. No one owns this property. "Oh, actually, I pulled out the papers from Mr. Williams. It's been in my family for—" She snatched the papers out of my hands. "These must be fake. I'm Patricia Henderson, president of the Willow Creek Estates HOA, and this house is unacceptable." She looked at my home like it had personally insulted her ancestors. Other neighbors gathered behind her, whispering, judging, staring at my truck like it had fleas. I held my ground. "Ma'am, this is my home now." She jabbed her finger at me. Not for long. That night, the crickets were the only friendly sound I heard. I sat on the porch, staring at the dark silhouette of the barn, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. The place felt alive, like my great-grandfather was still walking through the halls. It reminded me who I was. But the next morning, all that confidence got sucker-punched. A bright yellow violation notice was taped to my front door. Then a second one the next day. Then a third. Apparently my truck was not an approved vehicle type. My house was not the correct color. My wildflowers were unlicensed landscaping. I didn't even know flowers needed a license. Patricia was relentless. Every time I stepped outside, someone stared at me like I'd vandalized the entire neighborhood with my existence. And the worst part, I started believing them. Maybe I didn't belong there. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe tearing down the old house and leaving would solve everything. But then came Emma, little red-haired, freckled Emma, 7 years old. She showed up with a bouquet of dandelions for you, mister, because you look sad. She climbed into the rocking chair next to me like she'd been doing it her whole life and said the house looked like something out of a fairy tale. Her kindness hit me harder than any violation notice ever could, and it planted a question in my mind. If a child could see beauty in something different, why couldn't the adults? Her mom, Sarah, confided later that half the neighborhood hated Patricia's HOA rules, but they were too scared to push back. Too scared to get fined, bullied, or targeted. That's when everything shifted. I wasn't fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for Emma, for Sarah, for everyone silently being suffocated by one angry woman with a clipboard. So I joined the HOA. Patricia nearly swallowed her own teeth when I told her. I gathered the required signatures. I knocked on doors until my knuckles hurt. Some people slammed doors. Some whispered support. Some were terrified to even talk to me. Mr. Chin, an older neighbor with white hair and a gentle smile, put his hand on my shoulder. I've been waiting 10 years for someone brave enough to stand up to her. That pushed me forward, but Patricia pushed back harder. She spread rumors that I was a criminal, a scammer, that I'd turned the whole place into a trailer park. She tried to turn the neighborhood against me. And honestly, it worked for a moment. I started to question if I'd bitten off more than I could chew. I had no money, no influence, no lawyer army like her husband's dealerships provided. I felt like a kid trying to fight a hurricane with a broom. Then Patricia did something so cruel that the whole neighborhood snapped awake. She fined Sarah $300 because Emma built a tiny fairy garden, just a little circle of stones and flowers in their yard. Emma was sobbing. Patricia was shouting. I stepped right between them. "It's a fairy garden, Patricia, not a crime scene." "She violated Section 15C, Patricia barked. "She's 7, I said. "Maybe try acting like the adult." That moment, everything changed. Neighbors finally saw her for what she was, and they saw me standing up for a child who had nothing to offer me but kindness. The day before the election, Patricia tried a last dirty move. At sunrise, she hired a construction crew to build a giant wooden fence to hide my house from the neighborhood. It was tall enough to block the view completely. I just stared at it, defeated, until Emma ran across the street with a fistful of flowers. "Mr. Jake, we can make your side pretty." And somehow, everyone joined in. Flowers, paint, murals, kids laughing, adults smiling. It became the most beautiful thing the neighborhood had ever created, right on the wall Patricia built to erase me. She drove by 3 times, her face getting redder each time. Election day came, and against all odds, I won. 58 votes to 34. Patricia exploded, screaming about fraud investigations, lawyers, her usual greatest hits. But she'd lost. For the first time in a decade, she didn't hold the leash. I should have felt unstoppable, but that text message on my phone said otherwise. When I turned onto my street and saw the fire trucks lighting up the night, I felt something inside me crack. Flames tore through the kitchen, smoke billowed through the roof, my great-grandfather's walls collapsing, my history dying. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just froze. Neighbors gathered. Sarah pulled me away from the heat. Emma cried into my shirt. Mr. Chen stood beside me like a silent guard. Even Dr. Harrison, the guy who hated my house, showed up and said, "Nobody deserves this. If you need contractors, I'll help." But then the city showed up the next morning with a condemnation order. My house would be demolished in 48 hours. No investigation, no waiting, straight to demolition. And that's when Janet, the HOA secretary, came to me trembling. She told me she overheard Patricia making calls before the fire, pushing the city to condemn my house quickly, saying the fire was the perfect excuse. I wasn't shocked. I was furious and exhausted and honestly defeated. I sat at Sarah's table that afternoon staring at the demolition notice. Maybe I should give up. Maybe this wasn't worth it. Maybe Patricia had won after all. Then Emma peeked in. "Mr. Jake, are you leaving?" That question cut deeper than anything else. "No, sweetheart," I told her. "If you didn't give up when someone tried to take your fairy garden, I'm not giving up when someone tries to take my home." That was it. The fire hadn't destroyed me. It had ignited me. I called an emergency neighborhood meeting. I told them demolition was in 2 days. I told them I needed help. They all showed up. By sunrise the next morning, hours before the demolition crew arrived, over 200 people crowded my street with signs, cameras, chants, and a determination stronger than any bulldozer. Local news showed up. Reporters interviewed Emma about her fairy garden friend. Mr. Chen told cameras about a decade of HOA abuse. People from outside the neighborhood arrived because the story had gone viral. When the demolition crew saw the crowd, they refused to begin. "Not safe," the supervisor said. "We need city approval." City officials panicked. They stalled. And within hours, an investigation launched into the rushed condemnation order, the fire and the sudden pressure from Patricia. By noon, Patricia Henderson was officially suspended from the HOA board. By evening, she was being questioned by police. And by the time the sun set, the neighborhood that once wanted me gone was standing in my yard, guarding the ashes of my home, not letting a single machine move an inch. She didn't win. She never stood a chance, not against a community finally waking up, not against a little girl with flowers, and not against someone who refused to let a bully write the ending of his story. And if there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's simple. Sometimes standing up to one person gives everyone else permission to stop being afraid.